Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. Right?
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
And the millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. Justin Fox, Curtis Scaplen. Curtis, thank you very much for joining me on the show. I don't know if it's a dreary kind of day, but anyways, where you are, it's a dreary day here. So thanks.
Yeah, it's the same here. A little dreary, but it's mild for November, so
Is it?
we're lucky to have temperatures. I was just speaking with someone out in Alberta, and they're full on winter, so I'll take the
minus
mild
something, right? Minus like
Yeah.
20 or whatever in Calgary, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy. So you're in Halifax. So born and raised out there, or are you originally from out east?
Originally from St. John,
Okay.
New Brunswick, so in New
Okay.
Brunswick, and my wife is originally from Nova Scotia, but I've lived in Nova Scotia a couple of times. I most recently came back from Toronto
Okay.
in 2015,
Okay.
and came back here after we had living in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in Toronto, and had a child, and quickly decided that
Need a
we
little
wanted
more
to get back
space.
to the roots, and it was nice to be home, closer to home on the East Coast. Great place to raise a family. So
Awesome. So, do a quick little bio. I guess I've got sort of a quick
Sure.
bio here. So you're a strategically focused leader with a proven track record leading domestic and international teams to deliver results in a fast-paced, ever-changing environment. So just kind of, you're the principal and CEO of Action Consulting Group, and the co-founder and partner of Realty Scapes Real Estate Investment Group. And among other things, you've had a sort of a history, a track record of various roles. One of which I thought was interesting was with Philip Morris and then Rothman. So kind of want to maybe talk about that. That was sort of like your early days, but
Sure.
I go with a choose your own adventure, kind of like the books that we all read and loved as kids. At least I don't know. You familiar with the choose your own adventure book?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I like going with that. Gives you the option to kind of choose where this goes. Do you want to talk a little bit about your past or a little bit about the present, where you're at right now? Kind of what got you here, or where you're at right now?
Yeah, I certainly think that the past has led me to here, so it makes sense to kind of
Start
give
there.
a little bit of background,
Okay.
and so we can start off specifically with Philip Morris, and
Okay.
go back a little further, but basically Philip Morris. So I was actually in a corporate relocation role in Halifax right after university,
Okay.
and was approached by a mutual friend, and said, hey, I'm with Roth and Spencer and Hedges, and great company, you should check it out. And I was kind of humming and hawing, and yeah, do I do it? It's tobacco, um, and they said, just look, just jump on board and see what see
Do
what you
you
think about it.
smoke? I mean, I don't know if this is. No, you
No,
don't smoke.
no.
Okay.
You know what?
Okay.
We got the question a lot, and in
Right.
reality, it was the smoking incidents within Roth and Spence and Hedges was probably the same as it was outside of outside in terms of general usage. So, um, the best line I ever heard was I had a friend of mine who's a consultant. He's one of my dear friends now that we work together globally, and he um, he actually was a male South African, and he was the lead to launch Always with Wings. And he said, "Dude,
Okay.
I don't need to use the product. I
Right.
need to know how it's going to be used and what
Right.
customers need it." And
Right.
so,
Right.
so I always go back to that and laugh and say, it's an adult decision, and we just had to. Really, it was about the
Right.
customer.
Yeah.
So, you know, working with Rothmans when I first started. Um, I was sales rep, so I was going store to store. I learned so much about small business and retailers and what made them tick. And
Right.
they actually created a new department when the regulations kicked in 2008, because the tobacco industry had typically used retailers as vending machines, right?
Right.
Uh, you know, put as much facings on the back wall as possible, get as much space as you can, and pay the retailer for that space, and the customer comes in and they just say, okay, well, I want this, and there's not a whole lot of thought that went into it. But when the regulations kicked in, quickly realized that the retailers are now a huge play. That they're a partner. They're a partner in, because they've got to now make a significant choice on which brands that they want to do tie into, because they had limited space.
Right.
And two, we wanted to make sure that we could support their business in a meaningful way. A huge chunk of their margins were tied up in, tobacco lotto and and so how can we support them from a business perspective?
Right.
And that was a big shift. So a retail engagement department was created in Toronto, and I moved from Halifax to Toronto. We did some great work there with a small team, and then from there, Philip Morris ended up buying out the remaining shares of Rothmans, Benson and Hedges. And after
Okay.
when they purchased Rothmans, Benson and Hedges, they said, look, we can see where the regulations are headed in other countries. What are you guys doing in Canada, and some of the work that we're doing to train the sales force to engage with retailers in a meaningful way? So I actually got picked out of Toronto and got to spend 2 years in Switzerland in a global role. And I almost, we had a, it was brand building, training and development. Then it became the sales strategy division, but we were almost like an internal consulting division that we funneled through some of best practices. And that experience was tremendous for me. Just to be able to be global, get different perspectives. I traveled to many different countries,
Right.
and so that really lended itself to opening my eyes to different perspectives, understanding different cultures, how different consumers might interact with in a different way, or what's meaningful to each of them. So
Right.
that was a huge experience for me.
Interesting. So I want to clarify. So 2008, what regulations was it when they made sort of they covered it up with like the black kind of flip, or sort of there was no advertising allowed? Like,
Yeah, so that was the end of that was the last straw in terms of what you could actually do as far as market. So they called it the dark market. So basically is tobacco, it's all covered. It's you can't be visible within the shop.
Right.
You can't interact. The advertising goes away. So the marketing of tobacco in Canada completely changed. It
Right.
became more grassroots. How do you connect with the consumer at a deeper level? How do you engage with them and really interact? So it became a way more targeted approach than the sort of mass, what you would think of as the Fortune 500 mass marketing campaigns that you'd see from maybe a Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Procter and Gamble or Marlboro
Whoever.
or Philip
Right.
Morris in the past. Yeah.
Interesting. So I mean, obviously, the smoking. I mean, we don't even need to get into that part. Whatever, it is what it is. But I think it's interesting. So like, what kind of tactics were you able to use? Because I think there's like with sort of marijuana and stuff like that, there's a lot of similar type rules where they're not allowed to like directly market and do different things. And obviously people are using it and doing it, but what were some of the tactics? Like you mentioned, you went to Switzerland and kind of led, some sales strategy and different things over there. What were some of the branding and marketing initiatives that you would do sort of post 2008? Like how would you engage? I think it's interesting just to understand like sort of what that means. Like what does grassroots marketing in that kind of realm mean?
Well, I think it goes back to the fundamental principles, and I always believe, as much as you can market or brand a product or create the best slogan or the best logo, it really comes down to what the customer really needs. Like looking at it
Right.
from the outside in, and so how do you get closer to the customer? And what happened was when the regulations kicked in, and I'm actually one of my current clients is in the cannabis space, and we're dealing with some similar things right
I
now.
meant to
But
say cannabis. I said marijuana.
that's
Same.
okay. Yeah. No,
Whatever. You knew what I meant. You knew what I meant.
I was corrected very early on too
Yeah.
when I started to.
Cannabis.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's all good. But it comes down to how do you get closer to the customer, right? And
Right.
how do you really try to listen in and understand, their needs? What's important to them, and that might change. And if you're not checking in with them constantly, and the way the conduit to that became the retailer. So there was two elements of it. One is the education of the retailer became huge. How do you help them educate their business? And then also two, how do you give them the appropriate information on your brand, the specific product, features and benefits, what differentiates your brand from the competitor? So from the actual consumer product perspective, but also too, you have trade marketing to say, how do we become a better business partner for you as a retailer? How do we help you in your business so that we grow together? And that shift of pay to play, to more of a partnership approach really made a difference in how the dollars were spent and the more time and energy we spent on collaboration with retailers and versus just leveraging them as a resource to sell our product.
Right. Interesting. So I mean, I've smoked throughout the years. I don't do it now. Kind of have tailed off, but I just wonder, like the conversation. I'm just trying to think through my own sort of thought process. Like, I don't know if I've ever had a discussion with a retailer about what kind of cigarettes I would want to purchase. Is that conversation being had, or do you expect that kind of? And I mean, obviously in the cannabis space, same scenario. Are the retailers expected to kind of have that conversation with the customer or the consumer, like where, because you mentioned like brand awareness and the features and benefits and all the different aspects for each kind of each player in the market. How does that conversation get started, especially when it's let's forget about smoking, let's talk about cannabis, let's move on from the like how do you initiate that conversation, or what are some of the strategies that you're using, that you kind of implore your your retailers or your clients' retailers, if you will, in order to get them to understand the value of the product that they're potentially purchasing?
Yeah, no, so just to, I definitely will transition out of the tobacco world because I haven't been in it, in some time. So but what I can tell you is that the conversation is happening less often in the tobacco world, where people might have already established their brand.
Right.
But certainly you have new products and you have different things that are coming to the market, or like I said, the retailer might have chosen one brand over another. So if they come in asking for something that's not there, and they say, well, you've got
this
this choice. Have you tried this? This is comparable.
Right.
Shifting over to the cannabis space, it's totally different. So what's happening now is you've got a brand new industry.
Right.
You've I think that the Nova Scotia Liquor Corp here released a stat that was 1 in 4 people that are going in there have actually never even tried marijuana. So you got 25% of the market that is now saying
new to it.
Are new.
Yeah.
So you have two things here. One is the legal market is new. So all the products in the legal market, even there's a really mature industry, the cannabis industry has been around for years, the legal market's new.
Right.
So the bud tenders, which is the retailers, have a huge
what do they call them? Bud tenders?
Bud tenders. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah?
that would be
yeah.
They're the specialists in this space. So
Right.
but they have a huge job or responsibility to educate people when they come in. They're saying, I'm looking for quality, or I'm looking for a specific thing.
Result.
And
yeah.
And so it's up to them to really understand the product, and there's a deep knowledge within the bud tender. So from an LP or from a brand's perspective, the licensed producer, what we're doing is spending a lot of time with the bud tenders, with making sure that we can educate the consumer and the retailers on the differentiation, on why products, why the process behind the product that makes it quality. And I think too, it goes back to my original comment. You have to figure out what the customers want,
Right.
and the reality is the cannabis industry has been around a long time. So branding is important, but the product quality is going to speak for itself.
Right.
And for people to understand that, we need to educate the market on that. So it really goes again to marketing becomes more factual about the process, educating in a legal environment, because you're not going to talk about lifestyle. You're not going to talk, there's just it's a restricted environment. But what you can do is educate on facts around, your process and what's the differentiators. And then also too, how do you collaborate and help the retailers as they get going in a new industry, right?
Yeah. So what I guess I have two kind of questions there on that. What are what are sort of some of the strategies around the, like, so obviously you can't use like billboards, like there's a lot of restrictions around how you can disseminate the message. So what are some of the sort of tactics that maybe some of the existing, I guess you said, what are they?
Licensed
LPs,
producers, yeah.
licensed
Yeah.
producers. What are some of the tactics they're using there? And then I'd be interested to hear, like, give me some examples of maybe like how that partnership is created with the retailer. Like, does that actually look or work? Like, what are some of the metrics or the actual like specifics around, what a partnership kind of feel looks like for a retailer?
Yeah, I probably won't get into the details or the
I don't want to give
specifics.
the secret sauce.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's
Sorry, don't reveal. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I will sort of broadly
Yeah.
answer
Yeah.
both of
Yeah.
those questions. So you know the first part is again, within the regulations, you still have the ability to market the product and the process. It's more around education. So if you're
Okay.
speaking factually and you're not talking about lifestyle, and so we can use, you can use social media, you can use
Can you?
Instagram,
Oh
yeah, we
yeah.
can use Twitter, you can use LinkedIn. um, but it's really more around, again, education. Think education facts versus anything to do with how it's going to make you feel or lifestyle. So
Right.
that's crystal clear. But if you're just explaining the process and the time and energy and effort that goes into making a product, then you have full ability to do that across social media,
Okay.
um,
Interesting.
within guidelines, right? So certainly social media is one, and then two is a lot of sort of direct, so webinars and education sessions with retailers,
Okay.
and just making sure that their staff are comfortable and people are aware of the features and benefits or the brand differentiators, and so there's a definite want and need from the retailers to have that understanding, because it's going to help them be better in their space. And as far as partnership goes, there's, and this is probably similar across all industries. I've been across many industries, and basically it's the same. How do we grow together?
Right.
And really it would be about what's important to their business and how can we help them drive traffic. So you think about, like,
Right.
if we can specifically help them drive traffic, where the brand that am I able to say the brand that I'm working with?
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
say,
So
if you can say it. Yeah. I don't care.
yeah. So Masiku is the cannabis brand.
Okay.
It's from Atlantic Can, which is in Atlantic, Canada. And so if there's a way that we can help work with a retailer to make sure that they have a better understanding of the product and are able to sell it, and there's momentum in the market, then that's a win for both of us, right? So we
Yeah.
spend more time on education and some one-on-one with the specific stores around the product education and engagement with them.
Interesting. So what was the brand again? Mystique?
Masiku, yeah,
Masiku? How do you spell that?
it's Msiku.
Msiku? Masiku? Okay, cool. So people should check it out, I guess, or go into the stores and ask for
Yeah,
Masiku.
so currently it's available through the Ontario Cannabis Store
Okay, the
and
OCS or whatever, yeah.
and at the NSLC. That's where we're able to sell the product.
It's interesting you mentioned the 25%. I probably shouldn't say this, but so my wife has never tried smoking marijuana, but she decided she wanted to try the drinkable. So she actually bought some of from the OSD, the drinkable,
Yeah,
whatever you want to
yeah,
call them. I don't know,
whatever it is.
infused,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah, yeah. So to try it out. So interesting that, like, obviously it becomes legal.
yeah.
People that maybe in the past had kind of frowned upon it can. And if all of her friends and family are watching, it is what it is, right? It's legal now, right?
Well,
But,
and it's certainly that's the change, right? It's now
right,
legal, and I think that the stereotype is slowly going away, and they're
right.
doing a really good job, it's government regulated, and I thought that they, so far they've done a great job in making the transition as smooth as possible. There's obviously some hiccups early on, but I
Yeah.
think that there's a positive. The industry is in a good spot for some positive growth with the right partners. So, yeah, and
Perfect.
just if I could just, if I think about, we wanted to start with Philip Morris and where I'm here, so I have Action Consulting Group Limited,
Right.
and what I've tried to do with Philip Morris, so Fortune 500 company, who's constantly trying to improve and innovate, and they just have the strategic process. So those learnings and working with companies, now it's just applying that to the small to medium sized businesses
Right.
and saying, okay, you're not a Fortune 500 company, but here's some of the stuff that I've learned, or what can we take from that to build the strategic plan, to execute on strategic process, to make sure that your brand, exactly who you are, who you're not, how do you position yourself in the market to be successful. So that's really what I'm doing from Action Consulting Group. And
Right.
a lot of the learning came from working with companies like Philip Morris, like Stanfield's, and I've been able to apply that knowledge now to some of the small to medium sized businesses that I'm working with.
It's interesting. You mentioned Stanfield's. I was trying to figure out, is that what is Stanfield's?
So Stanfield's is 165 or 167-year-old manufacturer. So they're best known for their winter underwear.
I was
So
gonna say
they
underwear, right? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they're
I didn't want to say it though. Long johns, right?
underwear in general, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
they were the original underwear company,
Okay,
but
that's what
a
I thought it
great,
was, but I couldn't.
again too, like an
Yeah,
amazing story, great brand,
yeah.
great history, Canadian icon. So yeah, it was a lot of fun working
That's
with
what
them.
I thought it was, but I couldn't find a link back to it. I just saw Stanfield's. I was like, is that the underwear brand? But yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
want to say that until you said it. But but so okay, so I mean obviously, yeah, like you said, iconic brand, Canadian, been around for a while. So and then also, just quickly, so you also are founder of a like a realty kind of real estate investment group. So is that just kind of like a side thing where you're kind of in real estate putting, or tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean that's really a side thing. It's actually myself and my father are equal partners, and we'll look at real estate investments, small portfolio of multi-res real estate, and that's just something that when there's some extra money in the piggy bank, we'll look and see where we can invest. But
Right.
we just thought, I grew up in real estate, so Action Consulting Group was actually, my father founded the company as a,
Okay.
and it was known for real estate, and then I grew up in the real estate world, so believe in real estate as a good investment and a great
Right.
spot to park some money, and so we, that trend has continued within the family.
So let me, if you don't want to, let's kind of go a different slight direction. Put on your Nostradamus hat. Or I guess whatever your little, what do you call it, with the little ball, crystal ball? Get your crystal ball out. Where do you see the housing market? Like, what's it like in out east, Halifax? I know it's kind of the I guess condos have gone down, but housing has gone up in the GTA. What's it like in Halifax?
It's the hottest market they've seen in years.
Right. Okay.
It's a supply and demand issue, right? There's not enough inventory on the market.
Okay.
Um, and so, because people are trying to figure out, like, so houses are going for above market value. I think that would continue for a little while, but I would say that it'll flatten out or even out. Again, this is just one person's opinion here.
Onemansopinion.com, right?
Yeah, yeah, but I do follow it quite closely, and actually have one of my clients is in the real estate field. So, but I truly believe that if I was to sell right now, I would not want to replace it in this market. So it'd be a
Right.
great time to sell and maybe rent or hold out for 12 months and then go back into the market, because I think there's going to be probably a correction. It's interesting. Halifax, or Atlantic Canada in general, has, I guess I should say Halifax. Halifax has had a fairly stable ride in real estate. So you're not
Right.
going to get your big peaks and valleys like in some of the other major markets. But Halifax specifically, goes up with inflation. It's a safe investment. You're going to make
Right.
2, 3, maybe 4% a year on your investment. You're not going to, but right now people are just seeing this massive jump. Bidding wars on properties, and that's just the supply and demand. There's just
So
the inventory.
what's driving it? What do you mean by supply and demand? So like, is there an influx of people coming into the housing market, or like where are they coming from? Why is there such an increase in demand
Yeah, I think
decrease in supply? Like, are you losing houses to fires? Are there forest fires? Like, I don't, not to joke, but like,
no, it's just
where's the
yeah.
supply demand curve? How is that changing so drastically?
I can't speak to exactly where it's coming from and make some assumptions, but certainly there's the population increase is coming. There's people that are more buyers out there, like people that would want to buy now or purchase home. You mentioned the condo market, and the condo market really hasn't taken off in Halifax because in Toronto, when you live there, it's an entry point. I bought a condo because I wasn't able to afford a house
Right.
in downtown Toronto where I could, it was an entry point where the difference between what you'd pay for a condo and maybe 20 minutes outside the city, you're getting a house with a yard.
Right.
There's just not, it's
in Halifax, because it's
in
not
Halifax,
so big, right?
in Halifax,
Okay.
right? So you're 20 minutes outside the city. A house, it might cost you just slightly more, or maybe even.
What does a house in Halifax cost?
I don't know what the average price.
That
Yeah.
house like 20 minutes out.
So you could get into a nice property for 300,000. Like you're into a really nice, a decent home. If you get into
that's really good.
If you get into a $400,000 or $500,000 home, you're 3, 4, 5 bedroom house.
You pretty much can't get anything under $1 million in Toronto.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And some of the real estate's going that way. Like right now, there's a huge, like I said, we're seeing big spikes in property, and a lot more people want to live here now.
Well, I guess if you can choose where you want to live, right? Like it's sort of like, I mean, we've talked about this ourselves. There was sort of the drive for, the first part of our careers, my wife and I, that you want to be in Toronto, right? The opportunities, everything's kind of Toronto is where it is. But now if you can work remotely, like, I mean, pretty much I could run this business anywhere, and you can work remotely, and like you probably can work remotely for most of the part as well. You can live anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So then now you can choose if you want the 5-bedroom house, sort of, a little more affordable, a little outside of the city, whether it's outside of Toronto or outside of Halifax, or do you want to just move completely? Like we've talked about, uprooting to Barbados for 6 months of the year, right? Living in a, in a villa on the side of
sounds
the beach
amazing.
for 6 months,
Yeah.
right? Like how amazing would that be if my backdrop is like, instead of pretend beaches where like I can
I think you can do that on some of these programs, right?
You could do literally like, don't have it on this laptop, but yeah, you can have like a virtual beach or a real beach, right?
Yeah,
and kind of work remotely. So
the world certainly the virtual world, and COVID has sort of escalated that process too, or at least opened people's eyes out to how much can be accomplished virtually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone, I think there's businesses, I forget who it was. I think a friend of a friend, whatever. Anyways, so they're talking about like they're literally their business. Actually, yeah, it's one of the kids' parents, friends of the kids. But they're moving out of the city. His job has basically become permanently virtual. So he will never be asked to go back into the office. So they're like, hey, why are we? We can buy slightly, basically the same price for a probably twice the size home. Half hour further outside the city. You never have to drive into the city. What do you care, right?
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, you're seeing.
And there's big box stores everywhere, so it's not like you're missing out on anything, right? I mean, so all the amenities are everywhere, right? It's the commute that was probably killing people, and now without that, that's kind of going to change things. Cool. So housing market, I guess, prognosticator. What's your prediction for 2021 housing market? if you wanted to throw that out there.
I think the hot market will continue for 6 to 8 months. My guess would be that it'll level off near the end of 2021, but I could be wrong. But that would be my guess.
Yeah, it's only a guess. I'm not expecting it to. I'm not going to hold you to it. That's
Yeah, I wish I was as good at Gary Vaynerchuk as making those predictions of what's going to happen next. But
isn't he onto baseball cards? No, what's his prediction now?
Well, no, just in general, he's talking about
Collectibles.
Collectibles, and then what media is going to pick up and where industry is going to be. And it's funny when he goes back and does these hot takes, and you're just like, wow, he nailed it 5 years beforehand. So it's interesting though. I think that again speaks to volumes, because he's constantly listening to the market. He's constantly following trends and understanding from the customer perspective. So
Right.
I got a lot of time to listen and see that, and a lot to learn from that.
What is he predicting right now? I hear him a little bit, but I haven't listened lately.
Some of the bigger things that he'll talk about is, why is sort of the podcast world that we live in, why is Shopify not going to just all of a sudden add video and be a major player that in the video space, like with YouTube and with Netflix, right? Like why would they just not all of a sudden, like you could turn this into a podcast. It's audio only, but you're doing it on video right now, and it's I would assume maybe you're hosting it on YouTube. But
yeah,
what would stop them from just all of a sudden go, well, let's just turn this on video, and if you want to listen to the audio, you got it. If you want to go video, you got it too. Like, so that's his big prediction, is that some of these guys, as that channel grows, will be a bigger player in that space.
So you're saying Shopify? I'm just trying to.
Sorry,
Shopify would be able to allow people.
Not Shopify, Spotify.
Spotify. Okay, Spotify.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, I see. Okay. Sorry, I was thinking the Shopify. That'd be.
I might have
cool.
said Shopify, so I'm not sure. I know. I meant Spotify.
That'd be kind of cool if just. I mean, maybe it was a mistake, but I think if Shopify was able to allow their shop owners to launch a podcast as part of their shop, that'd be kind of cool as an add-on, right?
I think
the driver, but yeah.
I think Instagram, and there might be another channel that they're doing sort of go back to. Remember the home video network where you could actually go on and like buy this now and you got live. So Instagram is actually, I think, and maybe there's a couple other social media channels that are now building that in so that you can have live models and click a button and buy this now. It's like a live channel? It's like a live shopping experience through social media, which is interesting, right? How retail is changing, because people want to, you want to see it, you want to feel it. So
yeah. Are you guys on lockdown? No, right? Yes? No?
They just unfortunately they just crushed our Atlantic bubble. So we had it very, very nice for a while, where we had very few cases all across Atlantic Canada, and we were able to sort of travel with limited restrictions within the provinces here. There's been both St. John and Halifax had some community spread, and so they've tightened up restrictions quite a bit. So we're not on lockdown. Like we're able to go to and from, but a lot more restrictions on shopping, and bars and restaurants have now closed for dine-in, and gatherings are a lot smaller. So no gatherings at the home and stuff. So that's just recently happened in the last 2 weeks, which is devastating, right? To small businesses, it's devastating to families coming into Christmas. But I think that the effort is to try to do this over the next couple of weeks, get control of it, and potentially open things back up, closer to the holiday season. So yeah,
and the reason I brought it up too was kind of what you're saying, retail, right? Like here in Toronto or in Ontario, I guess, businesses are suffering, right? So having things like you just mentioned on sort of that type of like direct shop through Instagram is definitely going to be key for a lot of small businesses and retailers in general. And one of the things I actually was talking with someone way back at the beginning, like as restaurants, like they missed the boat. A lot of these smaller restaurants, they should have been building these audiences and kind of having that brand and kind of market awareness well before this. And now they're kind of struggling because they relied on being open. And I mean, I guess as a restaurant, you should be able to rely on your bread and butter being that you're open as a restaurant. Like who can predict a pandemic? But I think people like Gary Vee have been talking about like branding, content, getting your message out on an ongoing basis. So I don't know what, I'll probably end it, on that. What are your thoughts on kind of go back to the marketing side and the strategy, like around sort of that content creation, social media, building that engagement? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's absolutely critical, right? And I think
Right.
it's critical too from the customer perspective, is so they know what's going on, so that you're active, you're engaged with them, you're listening, you're responsive, and wow, like, we're in an era where social media, it's so affordable as a small business owner. If you're not taking advantage of that, I mean, if you think about what say a billboard costs you $3,500. I mean, the engagement you could get from a $3,500 campaign on LinkedIn or Facebook or
Right.
Instagram, I mean, it's mind blowing,
Massive.
the eyeballs that are on it. And you can target marketing. I
Yeah.
mean, you think about the geniuses back in the day with some of the Fortune 500, like Procter and Gamble. They would have to get like a 2% send out coupons to everybody and mail them all out and hopefully get a response. They might get a 2% response rate, which would give them some information about the customer. And then all of a sudden you might be getting pamphlets in the mail for diapers or for laundry detergent because they know a little bit about you. Well,
Right.
that's all from a small business perspective, that's all at your fingertips now.
Yeah.
So how do you not take advantage of that and be active and be social? Like, I'm all over that. And the other thing that you hit on, which is important, is, you know, the restaurants, let's just use that as an example, they relied on staying open, right?
Right.
But if you've
which
got
is a good thing to be reliant on. I mean, yeah, you
sure, but
can't knock them too much, but yeah.
if you're not constantly thinking about how to evolve, how to
Right.
improve, how to grow, challenging that status quo, you don't want a single point of failure in your business.
Right.
So
Right.
and that's what the best companies do. They're always thinking about improvement and
Yeah.
the strategy on how they grow or what if scenarios.
Right.
And for small to medium sized businesses, I mean, it's 99% of our economy, and it's mind blowing to me how many of the owners and leaders just they don't take the time to step away to plan or to talk about this stuff because they're
Right.
so busy in the business.
Right.
And so, that's something that I would encourage every business owner to, like you said, be active, be engaged, listen, but also, think about those what if scenarios, think about the single points of failure in your organization, and, how can you just be pandemic proof? And maybe you
Right.
can't, but at
Right.
least have the discussion. So
Yeah, sort of like the risk
yeah,
assessment, right? Like,
yeah,
definitely,
absolutely.
definitely. Well, I appreciate, Curtis. Thank you very much for joining me today on the show. I end it with one kind of thing. If there was one word that you would give, like a piece of advice to a younger you or to somebody kind of coming up, what would that one word be?
My mind goes to action because my
Action.
company is that,
Well,
but
there
I
you
would
go.
actually default. I would say love. I would
Love.
say,
Okay.
love yourself, love life, love other people, lead with that. Cause I just feel like there's just a need for that. And you can't go wrong, if you put that first.
Awesome. Love and action. We'll go 2 words. 2 words.
Sounds
There you
good.
go. Love action. Love action. Awesome. Well, Curtis, thank you very much for joining me today. Really appreciate you jumping on. I know we kind of had to go with different dates, so that's good. So we got it in there.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
accommodating. I know,
Appreciate it.
that's great. Thank you.
All
Thanks,
good.
Justin,
All
for
good.
having me and the invite. It's been fun.
Cool. So where can they find you? I guess just quickly before we
Yeah,
jump
sure.
off.
So it's Curtis Scaplen on LinkedIn,
Okay.
and that's probably the best from a social media standpoint,
Okay.
and on Facebook as well. And then Action is action.ca. So www.action.ca, and
Oh,
you can
really?
reach out to me there.
That's a good handle. How long have you guys had that one?
Well, like I said, my dad founded the
That
company
right.
early on, and we kept the domain for years, and so glad it stayed alive because
Yeah.
I got to take that on as part of taking over the business. So yeah, no, it's definitely a great domain, and we're glad we have it.
There you go. Yeah, ours is backers.ca, so we were able to get that one. But yeah, action.ca. That's perfect. Cool. So check them out. Curtis. Everyone else, this is One Take, powered by Backers. Justin Fox, Curtis Scaplen.
Yes.
Did I say it wrong the first time?
Hey, I did my job. You now know how to pronounce the last name. It's not easy.
There you go. There you go. Awesome. Everyone else, thank you very much. I'll see you guys again, I guess, on the next episode. Thanks, Chris. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
Justin.
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers.
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
The millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.